All right, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the offering track for PACE this year. It's my pleasure to be with you and to walk you through the updated offering module. I am going to go through and turn to a live presentation so that way I can show you. I do have a slide deck prepared. However, I will email you that slide deck when we're all done. It was prepared just in case we were on site and lost internet access, which is not the case now. So if I lose internet access, we won't be able to work together. So give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and change to the live setting. All right. So in this webinar, I'm going to go over fund management. I'm going to go over settings, whether you want to post to batches or not. We're going to post to a batch. I'm going to show you how to change open contributions, how to do a correction batch, and how to also create a batch for non-sufficient funds. So if a check was returned, as well as how to import your contributions. So the first thing you do is when you go into offering, it should bring you to the screen. And if for some reason it doesn't, you're going to want to check your pop-up blockers in the upper right. So I have funds. So this is my card view. And in my card view, I can click on any one of the items at the bottom to get to my cards, to get to the item that I'm looking for. Or on the left-hand side, I can go ahead and extend the navigation bar on the left-hand side. I can always go home to get back to my home, which brings me to offering and settings. Settings will only appear on your computer if you are a parish admin. Okay, so I'm going to go back to offering. So when we go to funds, and when you're on the screen, it's going to look like you don't have any funds whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the search to bring up all of the funds. So that brings up all of my funds. To the right of that, I have my card view, which I'm at right now, or I have a grid view. So on some of the screens, you're going to see a card view and a grid view. I'm going to click on the little grid view, and that's going to bring up all of my funds in a different format so that I can see all of them rather than having to scroll down. On the right-hand side, I have a little funnel. So in a little X, so I can clear or close my search bar. And if I need to bring my search bar back, I can click on the little icon to bring my search bar back. Okay, all of your funds transferred over. So you don't need to worry about transferring any of your funds. And to add a new fund, you would simply click on the plus to add a new fund. And then you would put in the name. You would put in the account number, just as you would before. Nothing has changed there. And then you have the fund requires pledges or not. The fund needs to be active. So I'll go ahead and put in a fund. I'll just type in festival. And my account number. So this is just like you would have done before. Nothing's different. I'm going to mark the fund active so that other people can see it. The fund does not receive or receives tax deductible gifts. That's automatically checked. And then this fund is not going to receive sustaining gifts. So I'm going to uncheck that and click save. So that's how I can save my fund. Now, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that your members or your staff members have permission. So you want to go to permission and make sure that they have permission to view this fund and to post to this fund. Okay, so any questions about adding a new fund? Okay, I'm going to go to the breadcrumb menu up at the top, and I'm going to click on the word funds. Now, if you add a new staff person, okay, so you have all of your funds, you add a new staff person, you can click on the little people icon, the manage permissions by member in the upper right to bring up the people. So if you add a new staff person, okay, I added Lisa, so I click on her little check mark or radio button. That brings up all of the funds, and then I can either select all, I can clear all, I can give specific ones, I can select all and deselect ones if I want to. So that's going to give her permission to post to those funds. Now, one of the things that I want to go over real quick before I leave the fund area is the funds themselves. So one of the things you might want to do is because all of your funds came over, whoops, I don't want to go fund batches. I'm going to go back and funds. all of your funds came over. So if you're not using specific funds at this time, such as I have Christmas flowers and I'm not accepting donations to Christmas flowers right now. The Easter flowers in here and I'm not accepting donations to Easter flowers right now. So I can go ahead and uncheck the fund is active. And then when your staff person is posting contributions, they won't see that fund in their drop-down list. Okay, so they won't see that fund in their drop-down list. So it makes their list a little bit smaller. Okay, you can't delete a fund because if there's history behind it, you won't be able to delete it, but you can inactivate that fund. The other thing I want to show you is reports. You have a little export icon over on the right-hand side. So if I click on the little download export, it generates it. Depending on your browser, it's going to show at the bottom or it's going to show in your downloads. Mine showed at the bottom. So I can click on that, open that up in Excel, and then I've got my fund report. The fund ID is the number that you would need to put into your online giving program. So that way you can import it into ParishSoft Family Suites. Any questions about funds? Please feel free to ask questions. You can either open up your microphone and ask a question, or you can put it in the question and answer box or the chat box. The next area I'm going to go over is settings. So again, if you're an administrator, you have access to the settings tab. We have our batch management information over on the right. Now, if your parish uses batches, then you can require contribution batches for every contribution. You can also require pledge batches. Okay. If your parish uses an online giving program, you want to make sure that allow multiple funds per batch is selected. You also have other defaults. Batch posting uses pledges by default, so I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to also uncheck the enable check number field by default and the memo field by default. Okay. Now, if your parish uses pledges at all, I would go ahead and click on the uses pledges by default. So Debbie raised her hand. Debbie, how can I help you? Do you have a microphone or can you put something in the chat window? So Debbie, if you can go ahead and put something in the chat window or open up your microphone, that would be wonderful. So what happens is when the batch posting uses pledges by default, if you're using pledges and the batch has pledges in it, if that box is not checked, it will post the contributions to the parishioner, but it's not going to tie it to the pledge. And we want to make sure it's tied to the pledge. Okay, so if you're using pledges, I like to keep this one checked just in case. Then below we have our default posting data. Okay, so I'm going to choose envelope number and I'll show you how you can post to a couple different things. You can post to envelope number, family name, member name, envelope number and family name, and envelope number and member name. I personally choose envelope number, but you can choose whichever you would like. And you can change these when you're in the program, when you're creating your batch. Now, if you're doing an online giving import, you want to make sure that the envelope number on the left-hand side is checked so that you can import your contributions. I'm going to go over to the upper right-hand corner and click on save. The little floppy drive is my save. So now my administration settings have been saved. Now I'm going to go ahead and go right into my batches. And it may look like I have no batches, but again, just like my funds, if I click on the little search button, it should bring up my batches. Oh, it's not. So over on the right-hand side, we have our, because it's looking for funds for All Saints. Looking for fund for All Saints. So that's why it's not pulling it up because I don't have any funds batches with All Saints as the main fund. So I'm going to go ahead and click refresh. So it takes that all out of there. And then I'm going to click on my search button. Okay, so now I see my batches. They are in there. I can view my direction by ascending or descending by batch name. I can order by batch name or one of the other criteria. I can choose the fund. And again, as you saw, most of my funds are offertory or flowers. I did not have anything for the other fund, so therefore that's why I had no Schutz results. So just like in the previous system, when you're searching for something and you know there's data in the system, it's got to be a filter somewhere. So once I refreshed it and then hit the search, I was able to find my information. I can also search from and to. Okay, so I can put in date ranges and my status. Here I've got any, open, review, and closed. So I can review any batch, which is what I have right now, just the open batches, my batches that have been put in review. Review is similar to committed in the old system. Okay, so review is similar to committed in the old system. If you used quick entry posting in the previous system, you have to put the batch in review here rather than committed. The difference is going to be in this system, you have to close your batch in order for it to appear on your reports. Now you can always print a report by clicking on the little export icon up at the top right, the little down arrow with the line. That'll go ahead and export that report. So you can always print the report, but in order to print it on any reports over on the left, any of the reports listed here, it must be in a closed batch. Okay, so we've got, and then last batch is, or last status is closed. So that's how you can find your batches. And again, we've got our card view and grid view. So that way we can see a little more. And if I want more information, I can always close that so that I can see a little bit clearer. To go into a batch, I just click on the little name and that takes me right into the batch. And I can click on the postings to go right into the postings. Any questions so far? No. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a batch. So I'm going to click on add new batch. Now my batch is going to be for Sunday, which was the 17th. So my fund is going to be offertory. I'm going to use my tab key and I'm going to 2021 1017 and 9 a.m. You can name your batches however you would like to name them. I like to name them the year, the month, and the day because it helps me find them a lot easier. And then I also like to put the service. We have a 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So that way, if I wanted to get a list of people who were attending a specific service or contributing to a specific service, I could get that list. I could use that list to potentially find families who have children. If I need altar servers, so I could reach out to those families and ask them if their children would like to be altar servers, or if I need any other help at a service, I could reach out to those families. Okay, now because let me just go back here. So the default contribution date, that's the date that is going to post on your contributions. So that's the date that's going to show up on your parishioner statements. That's the date that you would search for if you were searching for a particular contribution. When I was in my settings, I unchecked display check number and unchecked display memo. I left this check because my parish uses pledges. Now, if I happen to know that this batch doesn't have any pledges in it, I can go ahead and uncheck that. This was designed so that way, if you're not using pledges, it kind of prevents the system from doing the back check to make sure that the contribution has a pledge or not. So if you're using pledges, you want this checked so that way it ties that contribution to the pledge. If not, it makes the system just a little bit quicker to not have that checked. Down below, you have your default contribution type. So I'm going to go here and I can remove this and then I can choose a different contribution type. Then we have, I have to choose one though, let me cash. And then default lookup, that's what I chose for envelope number. So if I happen to know that this was a batch with only families or members, I could choose family name or member name if I don't have envelopes. So I can always change that. In the top, we have our pledge count. You don't have to put in a pledge count or pledge amount or contribution count. You do have to put in a contribution amount. So I'm going to put in $500. I'm going to go ahead and click on the little floppy in the right-hand corner. Now, the $500 that I put in here was the $500 that my counters counted and told me that that's how much I was going to have for this deposit. That's how I know. Now, I don't put a $sign in here. If it was $5.25, I could put 0.25. Okay. But you do not want to put the $sign in there. Otherwise, you're going to get a message that says you have an error. I'm going to go ahead and click on the little save icon in the upper right. Any questions before I save this? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And that has been saved. So one thing that I like is you don't have to leave this screen. You can click on postings, which is your new icon. Click on postings, and that's going to bring up my posting screen. Now, everything that I set as my defaults is listed over on the right. So at any time I can change them. So right now I've got envelope number and amount showing on the left. If I want to change that to envelope number and family name, I can add another field. If I want just my family name, I can do that. If I want to add a memo or a check number, I can always add those fields. Then those would be fields I would have to enter or tap through in order to complete my contributions. Those would be a couple extra keystrokes. So I'm going to start with my envelope number, put in envelope number 101, and then I'm going to use my enter key. Notice the family appeared down here. So I'm going to use my enter key to enter. I'm going to put in their contribution amount, and then I'm going to click enter to save that. So now my contribution is listed down below. I'm going to enter my next envelope, and that happened to be $200. So I'll change that. Notice the $100 did stay. And then I can enter to save that. Then I have my next envelope number, and that was only for $50. And then I can enter to save that. Okay, so enter in your envelope number and then your dollar amount, and then enter twice, and that's going to take you through those fields. Now, if I have to look up my name, I can either come over to this area and change the name or envelope number and family name, or I can simply click on the little magnifying glass. So it depends on what you'd like to do. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass. I'm going to put in the last name of Smith and then hit enter. That's going to bring up my Smiths. And so I can tab through to find the Smith that I want and then use the enter key to select them. So notice there is no envelope number, but the name is appearing down here. And then I can put in their contribution. So they gave $150 and then enter to save that contribution. Any questions about entering contributions? Now I realize this is only 4 contributions and you're going to enter a lot more. But any questions so far? My batch is now balanced. Okay, so as I add contributions, let me go ahead and add another one. Well, before I do that, let me show you this. So my batch is now balanced, 500 and 500. My count is 4. In the upper right-hand corner, I have a little I to move my batch to review. So I can move my batch to review at this point if I'd like to. Okay, moving it to review, I can still make changes to it. So I'm going to go ahead and move it to review and say yes. Now, if for some reason, after I moved it to review, if everything was good, I could close it by clicking the little check mark, or I could leave it open just like I did before, and I could change it. But remember, if it's still open, it will not show up in your reports over on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and add another contribution. So we'll just do another contribution 3. And this is going to be for $150. That's $50. But this time, this is going to be for a different fund. So I could do one of 2 things. I can click on change this entry. And then I can choose my fund here. I can change it if it was tax deductible or not, the contribution type or the contribution date. I have to click confirm. Or I could change that over here on the right-hand side. So this is going to change it for just this contribution. If everything going forward should go to Ascension, then I could come over here and change it to Ascension on this drop down. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And now that contribution is in here. Notice now my check mark in the upper right-hand corner is now gray because now my amount is $550 and I told it was going to be 500. Okay. So now I cannot close this batch because it doesn't balance. So I can do a couple different things. I can close this or delete this rather. That wasn't supposed to be in there. I can delete it by clicking the little delete button here. So delete that and say yes. Okay, so now it's back in balance. So I can change that. But let's say that $50 was supposed to be there. Change this entry, Ascension, confirm, save. So let's say our counters didn't give us the correct amount. So if we didn't get the correct amount, what we can do is click on our little batch details icon in the upper right. Then we can change this to 550. I have to put in a reason. And then I can save it. So now once I do that and go back to my postings, I now have my little check mark that I can close this batch. Okay. I also want to show you how you can change contributions in this open batch. So if Jason and Tracy, this contribution shouldn't have gone to offertory or should be posted to a different date or a different family, I can simply click on the little pencil icon. It brings that contribution up to the top. And I can click change this entry and I'll just change the date on this one and then confirm. So once I've changed what I wanted to change in it, I can click save. And now it's been updated in the same spot, kept its place in line. Notice as you're entering contributions, as you enter them and you save them, they're listed here. And your last contribution is listed at the top, allowing you to see your last contribution. All right. Any questions? You can also update multiple ones at one time. So if I click on the little check mark next to one or two or more boxes, the little pencil icon up in the top right, the multi-edit becomes available. And I can click on that. And from here, I can say, I want to change the fund for all the ones that I've clicked. Change the fund to festival. And I don't need to put in anything else because the batch is not closed. Okay, just change that fund, click save. And then I want to change those three. Yes, I do. So I can come back to postings. Hasn't been up, doesn't look like it has been updated yet. So I need to refresh this page. So either I can use the little reload this page in the upper right, or I can click F5 on my keyboard to reload that page. And now the page is reloaded. And now those three that I had changed to festival are festival. And to print this report so that I could look at it, I can export this report. I like to do most of my reports in Excel because it gives me more data per page. So I'm going to export this as Excel and you can download it to your computer if you'd like. So I've got this. Now, when you open this up, it's going to look a little different than it did before. You've got your batches, you've got your pledges, and the last page is the page we really want. That's our contributions. So this is the page that you could print to go along with your envelopes. So most people would print this and then put it with their envelopes. So that way, if they ever were audited, everything's in one pile. Now, if you're looking for something, you wouldn't have to go through every single envelope. You could just go through the list. But because it's stored in the system, once you close it, you wouldn't necessarily need to print it because if an auditor came, you could always just go into the system and pull up what batch it was in and find it that way. Okay, close out of that. So any questions about entering contributions in a batch? I'm going to go ahead and close. Well, no, let me show you this. So if I'm going to go back to offering and I go to my batches and I'm going to go to, and I want review because this one's actually in review, and then search. So my batch here is ready to be closed. So if I had a bunch of batches in review, I could click on their little check marks for each batch. And then up in the upper right-hand corner, I could bulk change the review to closed. You can also bulk change the open to review, just like you could in the previous system. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and say yes, and then close. So now my batch has been closed. So if I need to make any changes to it, I would have to create a correction batch. So the process for most parishes is your counters count up your offertory. They give you a total. Someone enters that into the database. You make sure that the total matches. If not, you make corrections. And then you take that deposit to the bank. And then the bank gives you a total and you make that sure that total matches. Or sometimes people take it to the bank and then they're entering contributions later. So either way, you want to make sure that your totals match. Okay. Once your totals match, you could close your batch. So once you enter the batch, you can put it in review. And as you saw, you can make changes to it after it's been put in review. But once you get the totals from the bank and you make sure everything matches, you can go ahead and close your batch. Now I'm going to show you how you can create a correction batch if you make a mistake. So I close this batch. I'm going to go down to offering and I'm going to go to my contributions. I want to find my batch. So I'm going to order by, let's see, from, that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the search. So here is my batch. It was the 2021, 10, 17, 9 a.m. So I'm going to copy that. So I highlighted and copied that because maybe not all of my contributions are going to show up on this page. And I might have some other contributions that were posted between the 15th and the 22nd. So I'm going to come down to my batch name and I'm going to paste my batch name in there. I puts a little extra space in there. So now it should find my batch. So here is my batch. So this is going to ensure that I have just this batch selected after I click on my little search. Don't forget to click search. Otherwise, it's going to leave it as it was. So here's my batch. Now, if I wanted to change everything in that batch, I could click select all. That's going to choose everything in that batch. If I wanted to just choose a couple, I could click on the little check marks to choose one or more in that batch. Okay, I'm going to select all. Then I can go to the double check mark in the upper right and click on the double check marks. And here I then can edit whatever value I want. I have 5 contributions selected. I can edit the donor, the fund, the contribution date, contribution type, the memo, or add if it's tax deductible or not. So I'm going to go ahead and change the contribution date. And I'm going to change that date so that everything was posted on the 17th. Okay, well, let's do a different date, 18th, so you can see that change. So I'm going to change everything to the 18th. Now I have to have a correction name. So I'm going to Control V to paste my name. I'm going to paste that correction name in here and I'm going to put correction. Okay, so I'm going to type in correction. So my batch name is going to be the same as my original batch. So if I was audited or trying to find something, both batches would appear together if I sorted by name, but one's going to have correction at the end of it. I have to put a reason, change date, and then I can save my contributions. So then I can create my correction batch. And yes, so my correction batch has been created. Now I have 10 contributions out of 10. So I had 5 before, Now I have 10. Right? So I'm going to scroll over to my postings and click on my postings icon. And my postings icon is going to show me what I have. So it created a negative contribution for each person to the original amount, original fund, the original date, and created a positive contribution to the person for the correct fund, contribution type, and the correct date. Okay, so everything is in here now and it's automatically corrected. Now I could, if I needed to edit anything or remove anything, just as I could before, I can delete multiple contributions. So if I'm like, oh, Joe Trainer was just fine, I could delete his contributions and my batch is going to be 0. So it really doesn't matter. It's not going to affect my dollar amount. So I'll still be able to put this batch in review. If I add anything to this batch, besides what's in here, then I would need to edit my total and my batch details in order to update that. Okay, so that's how you can easily create a correction batch for one or multiple items that you need to update in a batch that has been closed. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. But before I do, are there any questions? I do have a question in my chat. Yay. So Bonnie asked, what if you posted the entire batch to the wrong date and needed to post to the correct date? So that's the example that I did here. Was I found the batch and then I created a correction batch by clicking on the 2 little check marks in the upper right. Once I did that, then I opened it up and I went to my, it opened to my defaults and what I wanted to change. And I told it that I wanted to change the date. And then I was able to change the date for all of them. So here we've got the original date and the new date, the 18th. The original date has the minus and the new date has the 18th with the positive. Okay, so it updates each of those with a negative and a positive. If I change the fund would have been changed. So it would have showed me the wrong fund and then the right fund. So you can change multiple things for a batch if you made a mistake. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that batch. Oh, so now it says I have an error because I clicked up in this field. So now it's not going to let me do anything, or I actually click save when I didn't need to click save. So in order to get out of there, because this happens a lot and I've helped customers through this, they're like, I can't get through it. Just click cancel. So if you cancel that, if you started to type or you click save by accident, you can always cancel that. Now my batch is automatically in review right now. So if I want, I can go ahead and click on the little check mark to close my batch. And then I can say yes. So my batch has now been closed. Okay, so you can always close your batch later. So now the batch doesn't have a little check mark. It's been closed. I can always print this or export this at any time. Any other questions for batches? All right. Now, maybe you have a check that comes back, the check bounced. So the best way to report that is to create a correction batch with an NSF. So we're going to say that this, the Joe's contribution for $200, that check came back. So what I can do is I can go ahead and I want to use the same batch name. Okay, so I'm going to go to my batches and I'm going to create a batch. My fund was to festival, I believe. My description is going to be the same batch name, but here I'm going to put NSF. NSF for insufficient fund. The original batch was done on the 18th, or the original contribution was posted to the 18th. That was after I made my changes. And it was $200. So I'm going to do a minus $200. So minus $200. Then I click on my little save icon in the upper right. And now my batch has been saved. And I can go to my posting screen. put in my envelope number, and I put the minus 200. So minus 200, and then save. So now that NSF has been corrected, shows that it was a minus 200. I was going to post a minus 200. Now I wanted to put in a memo and check number. So actually I'm going to add those, and I'm going to click on my little edit icon to bring that back up, because that was check number 258. And I want to put in the memo NSF just so I have that for my records. Not something you have to do. It's something that I have for my records. So now I can go ahead and click save. That's going to save that record. And then I can put it in review. And then I can close it. So now if I go back to my batches and I say I want to view any batch, we want to view from the 16th and search. So here I have a batch that I put in on the 17th. Here's a correction batch, and here's my NSF. So here's my original batch. Original batch was for $550. Here's my correction batch, and there's my NSF. And because they're all named the same, they're going to show up in the same line. So even if they weren't, their ID wasn't the same, which it's not. And if it wasn't in chronological order, it would still show up. So I would show up my different batches. Okay, so that's how you can create a correction batch and how you can add something if it's insufficient funds. Any questions? Is anyone going to say we don't use batches? Does anyone not use batches?
Christina, everybody is supposed to be using batches. That's
okay,
a requirement for our diocese.
Perfect. Okay. Sometimes there's someone out there that admits to not using batches, though. So yes, you always want to use batches.
Yeah,
so,
we in meetings with finance, they want the balance sheet that the counters have, the batch and the deposit to all be the same amount. So that way, if we're ever audited or there's ever a problem, everything is all matching.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So those are some things that you can troubleshoot and do a few batches if you have any issues with it. Now, one of the other things you can do is import online contributions. So to import your contributions, you would go to imports, and then you would click on file. So you would browse your computer for the file. And I think I have a file on here. Let me go to my desktop, and there's my import file. I'm gonna go ahead and click on open. That's gonna load my import file. Now let me take a look at the import file and show you that import file real quick. I'm gonna go into Excel and open and browse. Desktop. Oops, I don't want that. I want the there we go. All right. So here we have, this is the import file. So if you were importing your contributions before, you should be able to import your contributions now. Should be no problem with that. It's the same file format as it was before. If you don't import your contributions and you're like, wait, I can import them rather than having to type them all in individually. Yes, you can. So you would do an export file from your online giving program, and in the format, in the column 1A needs to have a little H to tell it that that's the header. Column B1 is going to be your parish ID, which you can get from going to the administration tab and then looking up organization, and that's going to give you your organization ID. Column 2 is going to tell the system that it's a number. So this is going to be our dollar amounts. I don't have a dollar sign. It won't let you import with a dollar sign, but I could have 0.00 or point and some change. Okay. So those are the fields that I have to have up at the top in order to import. I have to have a C to the side of everything to let it know that it was a contribution. Column B is going to be my envelope number. Column C, as I said a moment ago, was my amount. Column D is the date. And column E is the fund. Okay, so that's the format of the program. Go back to my here. Now I can change this. So if I want to change this date to match my import file name, I could do that. So I'm going to call this let's call this Christina just for grins. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the little check mark. And it's going to tell me that my import succeeded. Now, if there was problems with it, it would tell me that it failed. Okay. And it would tell me what the errors were. Now I can go to my import history. And here is my batch. Import file name was that. My batch name was this. Because there's a little underline, I can click on that. And that's going to show me my batch. So here's my batch. I can view my postings. I click on postings. Okay, that shows me my posting screen. Because it's still open, I could edit anything I needed to. So I don't have to put it to review just yet. It comes over as balanced, but I could edit whatever I needed to. If there was something I needed to edit, I could group edit. So if I wanted to click on this and change that, I could go ahead and click on the pencil icon and change a bunch of them at one time. Okay. And when I'm done and everything looks good, I just go ahead and put my batch in review and say yes. And then I can close it because again, it's not going to show up on my posting screen until I close it. So if I'm looking for a specific contribution, I can go to contributions. I can put in the family name. So I'm going to put in trainer. And then I can enter to search, and that'll bring up the contributions for the trainers. So it brings up all their contributions, but that's just bringing it up for this date range. Okay. Now, when I'm in a contribution, I can click on it, and that's going to bring up that contribution. So because it's in a closed batch, I can't edit anything. So I'm going to go back to contribution details. Okay. Now, so here I could download this report. I could export it. I could see more things. One of the things that I wanted to show you, which I'm not showing you here right now, is how you can get the family's information. So I'm going to go back to my batches, and this is closed, correct? Yes. So I'm going to say add a new batch, fund, test.
I didn't want people to think I was open.
I'm sorry?
That's why I'm in the dark. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Do you have a question? So if you might have noticed, which I didn't point out before, I wanted to point this out right now, was as you're entering your contributions, you actually have a lifetime giving button. Okay, similar to when you were entering your detailed contributions before. So you can click on your lifetime giving button, and that's going to bring up a report that's going to give you your contributions and your pledges. You can choose for all funds or specific funds for that parishioner or that family. And you can choose family giving or individual giving. And then you've got your different 5 years, 10 years, and all years. You can see kind of a report over here on the left-hand side. Okay. And then I can see my contributions, which will take me to the contributions, which is going to bring me everything. Notice over here on the right-hand side, the contribution date changed to the 2017 through current. Because I was on that. I'm pulling up everything. So that's a new report that we have in there that you can view. Right. So I went over fund management, how to post to a batch, how to create a batch, how to change contributions in an open batch, how to change contributions in a closed batch, how to record a check that may have been bounced, and how to import your contributions. Are there any questions or anything that you'd like me to repeat? Guys have been entering questions for or entering contributions for a little bit. So have you come across anything that you think would be helpful to ask? No questions? Dee, is there anything else you'd like me to go over?
No, I think we're good on that.
Okay. Right. Right. I will be having some end of year webinars coming up. I've got them scheduled for December and January. So if you are not familiar with creating your end of year contribution statements, if you join one of those webinars, they are included with your software subscription. So there is no additional cost to sign up for them or to attend them. And it's going to walk you through how to prepare your database for your end of year contribution statements and how to print your contribution statements as well. So those are going to be coming up. And if you don't get notification for those in a newsletter, you can please feel to always to call or email Parasoft training@parasoft.com, training@parasoft.com, and go ahead and ask me for those dates, and I'll be happy to send those dates to you. So Brenda says she stepped away and missed imports. So imports is really pretty simple. I'm just going to go to my imports and file. I browse my computer for my specific file. So I'm going to choose my desktop and my import. It has to be a CSV file. I didn't mention that before. Oh, didn't like that one. Let's see, where is it at? Okay, so I clicked on the file that I wanted to end in or add in. Then I can change my name if I wanted to. So I'm going to change this name to test. And then click on the little save. So that imported my batch, told me it was successful. So then I can go to import history, and under import history, I've got the 2 batches that I've imported. I can click on test, and that's going to bring up that batch and show me everything in that batch. I can even go to my postings, and that's going to show me the postings for everything in that batch. And then I've got my little download, so I can download that. Okay. And this actually wasn't my test batch because it's off. It's a different batch. So
Brenda, this is being recorded too, so you'll be able to go back and review when Christina went over it the first time a little slower, so that way you didn't miss anything.
yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, I realized we started a few minutes late, but I wanted to make sure you guys got everything out of it. All right, so if there are no other questions, I want to thank everyone for attending.